United States submarine base at Key West, Florida. A dispatch that quoted President Truman's press secretary, Charles Ross, as saying that President Truman has no knowledge of any secret project by this government that would give substance to the existence of such objects. Ross also said that both the Air Force and the Navy deny that such objects exist.
Hello, hi.
Hi. That was weird. You said hello instead of hi.
I know because I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that
Like
I
any chance
clicked it as fast as I did.
I didn't. That made me uncomfortable. I feel like
Sorry, here you can have a hi.
So if SNRIs get banished and made illegal, I'm fucking toast, man.
SSRIs?
SNRIs. I'm on an SNRI, my homie. If I can't medicate, I'm gone, man. I am off into the woods, and I am.
Yeah. Yep.
Because if I can't even handle you saying hello instead of hi, like that made me physically ill. I'm toast. I'm fucking cooked.
Well, I think that's all of us, dude. But
yeah.
Hey, what's up? My name is Noelle, and if we get put on RFK's mental health farm, I hope that I have like a cool job, like digging holes or something.
What would I want to do? I would want to be like in the house. I would want to be in charge of like maybe taking care of his like awful fucking rude ass children who just like scream all day. Like I would be the servant to like the little boy in Secret Garden before the girl comes along and makes him better. That's what I would probably do.
You want to work in the house. You want to work in the household. You want to be a wet nurse.
Oh, you know what? I probably could be a wet nurse.
Well,
I'd mother's milk. That's actually what I thought I would do too in Fury Road, is I would be one of the just milked women.
Really? That's where your shoot for the stars is?
Oh my God. That's not shoot for the stars. That's just like practical reality.
If we're in Mad Max RFK mental illness farm reality, I need you to be Furiosa, bitch. I don't need you to be a milkmaid.
Okay, well, we just talked about how our allergies are so bad right now. I think it would be crazy for us to think that we could do anything Furiosa related while I'm having this unseasonal hay fever.
Oh, do I know it?
But I'll try. I'll do my best. I'll give it the old college try.
Yeah,
but
thank you.
Once my asthma kicks in, I gotta go home.
Well, he didn't say he's banning inhalers. He just said he's banning. Yeah, fair and true.
So,
well, speaking of banning inhalers,
speaking of the government doing things to kill you, we got a fun one today, and by fun one, I mean a little depressing. So, hoard those antidepressants now because you may need them. The CIA's official birth in 1947 under the Truman administration was framed as a necessary response to global threats in the wake of World War II. But from a conspiratorial lens, its formulation was less about protecting democracy and more about constructing an unseen hand to manipulate world events. The OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, its wartime predecessor, the OG CIA, had already laid the groundwork for covert manipulation, and many believe the CIA's creation was the U.S. deep state institutionalizing its power. According to conspiracy theorists, the CIA wasn't just an intelligence agency. It was a tool forged by America's elite to safeguard corporate interests, dismantle socialist movements, and ensure the U.S. maintained an iron grip on emerging post-colonial nations.
How could you say this is conspiracy theory? Why would you say it's conspiracy theorists say that? I feel like that's just fact.
No, well, that's fact to us.
What do you mean? But
you and I know they killed Kennedy.
Okay, but like
if you said that in a government, if you said any of this in a government position, you would get fired.
Okay, but like
in Trump's cabinet, I don't want to be related to the two, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. What about but when it says like dismantling socialist movements, we know that like the CIA was intentionally like trying to disband from within by putting like moles into groups, and they were like genuinely stalking like Dr. King and like Fred Hampton. Like we know that.
But
We
that's
know that.
that, dare I say, is probably some of the more ethical things that they have done to dismantle socialist movements. The way that they got down and dirty by just circumnavigating law, uh, international morality.
Hmm.
We're going to get into the things that they have done that are so swept under the rug that we will understand what a truly terrible agency they are. But honestly, like a lot of people don't think the CIA is that bad.
But okay, I
But
just feel like
we know because we've covered it. We know because the CIA, when we did our CIA documents deep dive, that they were putting fake college students into random like socialist clubs or even clubs that were some would call them DEI, like clubs that were like, hey, this is like the black club on campus. Like it's just giving us a place to hang out because we're in such a densely white area. The CIA would send people in there to dismantle them. So I think
mhm,
you and I are in the know.
yeah. But don't uh, I just but didn't they also like inject lower income areas
Yes.
with STDs?
Yeah.
And but everyone knows, like everyone's seen Pineapple Express. Everyone
Hmm.
knows that like the CIA was experimenting with LSD to try to have mind control abilities. That's not conspiracy. We know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But when you loop that in, that them dismantling socialist movements to be in the pockets or like to like pad the pockets of like billionaires, that's where you're like, oh, because they might paint socialists as a threat, but they're painting socialists as a threat of violence, not socialists as a threat for shareholders not getting their payout at the end of the day, so to speak.
okay.
Um, so the agency's almost immediate pivot from intelligence gathering to political interference, coups, and assassinations only adds to this belief, aka proof. The National Security Act, which birthed the CIA, is often seen as the legislative facade for what was essentially the formalization of a secret government, one capable of acting without congressional oversight. From the start, the CIA's covert operations echoed the paranoia and ruthlessness of the era. Documents reveal that even in its infancy, the agency was experimenting with assassination techniques and psychological warfare, borrowing tactics from the Nazi SS and other totalitarian regimes. Many would argue that the
Hmm.
CIA's early leadership, men like Alan Dulles and Frank Wisner, weren't just cold warriors, but architects of a shadow empire designed to crush dissent and preserve American supremacy at all costs. In this light, the CIA's involvement in countless assassinations, from Patrice Lumumba to Salvador Allende, wasn't a deviation from its mission, but the very reason for its existence. The agency's legacy of secret prisons, mind control experiments, and targeted killings didn't emerge from rogue elements within it because it was embedded in its DNA from day fucking one.
Yeah.
Goodbye, YouTube monetization.
Dude, yeah, girl, we've been known. I, I have to suspend my disbelief for a second. I have to put myself in the mindset of someone who does not think like we do.
Mm-hmm.
Because for anyone, anywhere, to say that like the CIA is some just and righteous organization that's just like meant to protect us from the government.
Mm-hmm.
It's a, I just
Well, was
it's
it
hard.
what did you think about the CIA? Like the CIA in school was a response to what happened in World War II to like help protect us from like another Pearl Harbor, right? Like that's how they kind of paint it. Like we need an intelligence agency so that this never fucking happens again. And then they just move offshore,
Yeah.
so to speak. They don't even move offshore, actually. But we're going to get into their political assassinations or just like regular homegrown assassinations to see how they done been operating from the start and how they continue to operate to this day.
To me, thinking that the CIA is out for your best intentions and not like actively trying to harm you and like use intelligence on you and spy on you and have your information is the same mentality of someone who's like, why, yes, I do believe that the billionaire corporation owners are looking out for my best interest. It's like, what are you fucking saying?
Them competing against each other will drive costs down.
Yeah. God.
This is a conspiracy I buy into, that JFK was the last president we had for the people, because every president since then, the CIA has allowed to live. That's how you know they were on our side.
And that tea's hot, girl.
Mm-hmm.
That
It's
tea is hot.
hyping. So, did I lose my spot? Yes, I did. In the shadow of World War II. In the shadow of World War II, the United States emerged as a superpower, grappling with the ideological threat posed by the Soviet Union. The newly minted CIA, again formed under the National Security Act of 1947, quickly moved beyond passive intelligence gathering. Its architects believed that covert operations, including assassinations, were essential tools in shaping global events to favor American interests. And the Cold War just wasn't fought in boardrooms or battlefields, but in the dark alleys of foreign cities where whispers of CIA-backed plots echoed for decades. So let's go to 1953, the Iranian coup, known as Operation Ajax, which exemplified this shift. Mohammad Mossadegh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you didn't spell it phonetically. That's on you.
It is on me. If you want to read ahead and just find any hard phonetic words, I'm just kidding. So this guy was Iran's democratically elected prime minister, and he became a target after nationalizing the British-controlled oil industry. Kermit Roosevelt, fucking nerd junior,
fake name,
the CIA's chief orchestrator, also described the operation as a neat job, though Mohammed's house arrest marked only the beginning. CIA operatives, emboldened by their success, would employ more violent means in subsequent operations. In Guatemala, Jacobo Arbenz met a more tragic fate. His land reforms threatened U.S. corporate giants like the United Fruit Company, which led to Operation PB Success in 1954. The CIA's psychological warfare campaign, coupled with arming rebel forces, ended in Arbenz's resignation. What followed, though, was a bloody civil war spanning decades, with thousands of deaths linked to U.S.-trained death squads.
What's so crazy is, like, I know we talked about the United Fruit Company when we talked about the exploitation of cigarettes.
They're like the fucking mafia, dude.
Yes.
We've had a gun to our head the entire time, and it's just a man in a banana suit.
He's wearing that flamenco dress. He's got a gun. But it's Uncle Sam in drag.
Yeah.
Uncle Sam in drag in the flamenco dress, wearing a hat that's made of bananas, holding a gun that fires real bullets but is made of cigarettes.
Yep.
That's it. So anyway.
And you pay for it. You have to pay for it. So the agency's brutality wasn't confined to regime changes. Documents reveal early discussions on assassination techniques ranging from poison darts to staged accidents. Wink. A chilling example from declassified CIA manuals details how operatives were trained to make murders look like suicides, emphasizing the need for plausible deniability. The blood-stained blueprint laid down in these early years set the stage for more audacious operations that left a trail of chaos in their wake. And no single individual bore the brunt of CIA assassination attempts like Fidel Castro. With over 600 attempts.
Dude.
Documented attempts.
Dude.
These are only the attempts that we documented. The lengths to which the CIA went to were not only extreme, but bordered on the absurd.
You want to know what's funny is that Trump got his ear grazed, if we even want to believe that's real. And he comes out to Many Men by 50 Cent. Meanwhile, Fidel Castro they have had over 600 attempts to take his life. I think that 50 Cent should dedicate the song Many Men to Fidel Castro.
We're retaking it back for Fidel.
Reclaiming that.
Because they tried exploding cigars,
Classic, classic.
poisoned milkshakes.
They would have got me on that.
They found where Fidel liked to dive and swim, so they booby-trapped seashells to explode.
Incredible.
It was
Incredible.
like Mr. Bean met up with Wile E. Coyote
Yeah.
and they went to Acme Studios to gun this
Yeah.
man down.
I was waiting for you to say, and then they built a brick wall in the middle of the road, but
They
took
painted a
chalk,
tunnel.
painted
Yeah.
it, and then they sat on the side. Yeah. I was
They
waiting for that.
dropped an anvil on him, but
Mhm.
it missed
Yeah.
by seconds. So beneath the absurdity lay a ruthless determination to eliminate a man whose defiance symbolized a grave threat to the American hegemony. Hegemony.
No, that's
Hegemony.
hegemony.
The American way of life. I don't know why I write things where I can say
Hegemony,
stuff in
girl.
you know what I mean, where you can say stuff in your brain, or
Yeah.
I'll say that word perfect. I'll whisper it in the mirror in the morning, but then I have to say it to you and the fine folks listening right now, and I think the CIA shot me with their fart gun, and now that's my brain. It's just gas.
Oh, fuck.
That's my bad. Public education.
I was gonna say.
The CIA's vendetta against Castro began almost immediately after his rise to power in 1959. According to Fabian Escalante, Cuba's former counterintelligence chief, there were more, quote, than 600 CIA plots to assassinate Fidel Castro, which is cataloged in his book, Executive Action, 634 Ways to Kill Fidel Castro.
Love that.
Again, they had cigars laced with botulinum toxin. They infected his diving suit with tuberculosis.
Jesus.
And they rigged the mollusks, girl. So the agency's collaboration with organized crime added another layer of intrigue. Robert Mayhew, a former FBI agent turned CIA operative, enlisted mobsters Sam Giancana, Santo Trafficante Jr., and John Rosalie in the agency's pursuit. CIA documents confirmed that, quote, Mayhew was identified as the team leader who recruited Rosalie, a gambler with contacts in the Italian-American mafia and Cuban underworlds, end quote. The plan was straightforward. The mafia would just deliver poison pills that would be slipped into Castro's beverages. However, logistical issues and internal betrayals rendered these attempts futile.
Yeah, too bad the Sopranos weren't out by then, so they could have seen how
they took one look at Castro diving around exploding mussels and they just fucking fell in love.
I would like to think that when he was swimming and mussels were exploding around him but missing him, like Benny Hill music was playing.
Yeah.
And so like when an explosion would go off, he would be underwater and he wouldn't really hear it. And then he'd pop up and be like, what was that? And it would be nothing.
It's like they sent Mr. Bean to do it and Mr. Magoo. And Fidel's just like going about his day completely oblivious to everything happening.
Yeah, it's silly hijinks when you forget that it was an actual assassination attempt on someone's life.
Yeah. In 1963, they hired a sniper, just and another team of operatives and then they ended up being apprehended on a rooftop within rifle range of Castro at the end of February or beginning of March 1963, which was an operation confirmed by CIA Inspector General reports, despite many factual errors in the news coverage. And this attempt underscored the agency's desperation as the Cold War intensified. They went from fun poisonings to direct shootings.
I can only imagine that the version of news coverage was like, wholesome Christian American family on vacation is apprehended rudely while viewing the cities atop a roof.
Yeah, right. Like, we have to tax and put tariffs on the cigars to fight them. Perhaps one of the most intimate assassination attempts came through Castro's mistress, Marita Lorenz, who was recruited by the CIA to poison it. She smuggled poison pills into a jar of cold cream, but they dissolved before she could administer them. Confronted by Castro, she admitted her mission, and in a moment of dark irony, he handed her his gun, saying, I can't do it, Fidel, before embracing him herself.
Wow.
The CIA's plans extended beyond individual operatives to larger strategic maneuvers. According to the 1975 Church Committee report, there were detailed discussions about a plan still in the embryonic stage to assassinate Fidel Castro. And if I know anything about the Republicans, they had to carry that plan to term. With the
Nice.
financial
Nice.
with the financial backing from wealthy Cuban exiles and mafia figures. The report noted that, quote, we also have these reports on Mafia, MAFIA, all caps, plans to perform a coup de main operations for cash. As late as 1972, CIA memos revealed that the agency was aware that Rosalie intended to expose his participation in the plot should we not intervene on his behalf, demonstrating the high stakes and moral ambiguity in these covert operations. They kept sending people in there who couldn't do the job.
Well, that's what happens when you hire people off of Craigslist.
You and I would have gotten it done.
That's what I'm saying.
We got that boomer work ethic.
Yeah, I'm like, whatever you say, I'll work overtime for
Yeah,
free.
okay. Just for the experience, right?
Shall we get a pizza party?
Yeah. And they want to pay, the CIA would like to paint Castro's trying to take him out as toppling the communist regime. But really, what they wanted to do was reassert American dominance in the Western Hemisphere. And Castro's survival became a symbol of resistance, and each failed attempt only added to his legend. They eventually are going to turn him into a martyr.
Oh, for sure.
Another one who came in the crosshairs of the CIA was Patrice Lumumba, who had a short-lived tenure as the Democratic Republic of Congo's first prime minister, which ended in violence that echoes through Africa's post-colonial history. Lumumba's impassioned speeches, including his scathing critique of Belgian colonialism during the Congo's Independence Day, marked him as a threat not just to Western interests, but to the very fabric of neo-colonial influence. The Church Committee's findings revealed solid evidence of CIA involvement, with Alan Dulles interpreting President Eisenhower's fuck me, I'm having a stroke.
There you go.
We start that over.
President Eisenhower's frustration.
President Eisenhower's frustration with Lumumba as a green light for assassination. A CIA chemist was tasked with delivering a tube of poisoned toothpaste to Lumumba, but logistical failures prevented its use. It was probably too big and it didn't get through TSA.
They said, sir, this is over 4 ounces.
They're like, get your goddamn laptop out of the fucking bag.
Shoes off! Shoes off!
Shut up! And then that's it. Yeah, all done. So anyway, that's what happened. But the CIA's financial and logistical support to rival factions ensured Lumumba's capture and eventual execution by a Belgian-backed firing squad in 1961. The aftermath of this execution saw the installation of Mobutu Sese Seko, whose decades-long dictatorship, marred by corruption and human rights abuses, was propped up by U.S. aid.
Of course.
The death of Lumumba symbolized the death of Africa's hopes for true independence, with the CIA's hand evident in the continent's subsequent political instability and bloodshed.
Can I just say here quickly before we go on?
Mm-hmm.
It's always interesting to me whenever we look at the Americanized history of socialist or communist parties or the attempts at a growing one, right? And people will always say, like, you know what all these socialist nations have in common? They're all poor. They're all starving. And you know what I say? Hey, in the time that it took you to say that or even think that or type it or whatever you're doing, multiple children have died of hunger or contaminated water in the United States. Now go ahead and take a look at all of the other countries that have felt the brutal, bloody, sweeping hand of America's colonialism and tell me what's going on there and tell me that capitalism isn't the most egregious, horrific, violent, oppressive, restrictive, harmful thing to happen. Just because it's not directly in your backyard doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's the the irony is never lost on me. So
Right? It's like, what do these nations have in common so far? Us.
us getting involved.
Whoops.
Yep. Yep.
Whoops.
Yep. Yep. So anyway, you can go on now.
Operation Condor was a covert initiative that spanned Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, and Bolivia, which showcased the CIA's darkest capabilities. This transnational campaign of political repression and assassination, initiated in the 1970s, saw the disappearance of tens of thousands of perceived leftist threats. The CIA's fingerprints were evident from the onset. In Chile, the overthrow of Salvador Allende in 1973 wasn't just a coup, it was a meticulously planned operation involving millions of US dollars funneled into anti-Allende propaganda, orchestrated economic sabotage, and direct collaboration with Pinochet's military junta. Declassified documents reveal that Project Fubelt was the code name for the CIA's covert operations to sabotage Allende's government, including diplomatic isolation and economic destabilization. General Augusto Pinochet, who replaced Allende, went on to torture over 40,000 people and murder an estimated 3,200 more, many in the infamous Villa Grimaldi detention center, where detainees were, quote, electrocuted, raped, and subjected to psychological torment, end quote.
Oh.
Wait till you hear who they learned that from.
Yeah, good thing the CIA stepped in, right?
Yeah, thank God. So the horror didn't stop at that regime change. The Chilean secret police, DINA, spearheaded Operation Condor's brutality, establishing a system of state-sponsored terrorism across Latin America. CIA-backed death squads carried out cross-border assassinations, targeting political refugees and dissidents, with U.S. intelligence providing logistical support and intelligence coordination. A chilling example includes the infamous Caravan of Death, where Pinochet's operatives executed political prisoners in northern Chile, with U.S. officials turning a blind eye. This Caravan of Death, a military death squad, traveled across Chile, executing over 75 prisoners who had already surrendered and who were also in custody. Declassified documents revealed that the CIA was aware of extrajudicial killings. According to records, Project Fubelt, aka the code name for the CIA's covert operations in Chile, included support for Pinochet's brutal crackdown, and any atrocities that were carried out by DINA, the DINA, were just swept under the rug. General Sergio Arellano Stark, Pinochet's trusted officer, led the Caravan of Death, infamously instructing his subordinates to exterminate leftist elements without mercy.
The CIA is very much like Manson.
Yes, that is like the perfect way to describe them.
They
want you to see them as hanging out with the Beach Boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're Charlie Manson. They're like, yeah. I got everyone dune buggies and we love listening to fun, cool music. And then he's like, hey, everyone, I need you to kill and murder this pregnant woman. And then they're like, okay, aye, Captain.
Perhaps most chillingly, the Caravan of Death wasn't even an isolated atrocity, but a calculated campaign to instill fear across the country. The military convoy, which traveled by helicopter, was seen as a harbinger of death wherever it landed. Victims' families, left without closure, often received anonymous calls warning them to stay silent. One such family member recalled, quote, they told me, if you ask questions, you will join your brother in the desert. Lost my spot.
In Brazil.
We're skipping to Argentina's dirty war. Argentina's dirty war, which was a cornerstone of Operation Condor, saw an estimated 30,000 disappearances. CIA operatives embedded with Argentinian military intelligence witnessed and sometimes participated in these infamous death flights, where drugged detainees were thrown into the Atlantic Ocean. Again, this is part of Operation Condor's Caravans of Death.
Jesus.
U.S. documents later revealed that the CIA provided an intelligence list of suspected subversives, many of whom were subsequently executed. We gave them the fucking Santa Claus list of
Yeah.
who to go get, and we threw them into the ocean to
I
drown.
also wouldn't be surprised if whatever vehicles or planes they were taking also were purchased with US blood money.
Yeah, and the fact, like, yeah, they're not going to be able to like afford any of like this like super advanced stuff in the middle of the coup. Like, I'm sure that the money in the government was like all tied up, not accounted for. So the United States steps in to like help. It's insane.
Yeah, yeah. I can only imagine that a CIA operative in a trench coat and a shitty fake mustache like opened it up and was like, "You guys want any bazookas?" Like,
Yeah, right.
handed
And we see it all the time. Like Mexico is going to sue, wants to sue the United States for providing the drug cartels with weapons.
Yeah, and I think they should.
And then the United States turns around and says, "We don't want to help you. You're overrun by drug cartels." And it's like, it's an Ouroboros, right? We are just eating ourselves.
Yep.
So let's enter Dan Mitrione. His methods included electric shocks, simulated drownings, and sleep deprivation. And guess what his job was? To teach all the people in all of these operations on how to question their political detainees.
Question in italics and quotes.
Uh-huh. Witnesses later recounted how Mitrione insisted on a scientific approach to torture, avoiding unnecessary brutality while ensuring maximum psychological impact. And this scientific approach didn't make the torture any less horrific. Like, torture is still torture, even with a dress on.
hmm
One detainee recalled being subjected to electric shocks until, quote, my body convulsed uncontrollably, end quote, while Mitrione observed with detached interest.
Well, simulated drownings sounds like waterboarding.
Yeah. Like this guy, oh my God, who was that? Why am I having Kevorkian? No, who was the
Dr. Death?
Nazi? Who was the Nazi who did all the torturing and he was into the twins?
Oh my God, don't do this to me right
I
now.
know, right? Nazi twin doctor. Don't yell at me, everybody. Mengele.
Yep, Mangala. How could we forget?
We have our own Mengele in history and never heard of this guy. I'm
Yeah.
probably saying his name wrong. You know what? I don't care. I care about the other ones, but I don't care about him.
hmm
So Mitrione's death in 1970 at the hands of the uh, Tupamaros, which hell yeah, I love them. A leftist urban guerrilla group highlighted the. I don't know if I actually love them. Don't quote me on that. But they were a leftist urban guerrilla group, and who highlighted the growing resistance to U.S. intervention in Latin America. The Tupamaros kidnapped Mitrione and demanded the release of political prisoners in exchange for his life. And when their demands were not met, they executed him and left behind a legacy that continues to symbolize the dark collaboration between the CIA and repressive regimes.
I think they sound pretty cool so far.
Yeah, from what we know.
Yeah.
And the legacy of Dan Mitrione's work lives on in the collective memory of Uruguay, a grim reminder of the CIA's willingness to sacrifice human rights in the pursuit of geopolitical dominance to this day. And Operation Condor was not merely a series of isolated events. It was a systematic campaign orchestrated with meticulous precision. Declassified communications between the CIA and Latin American dictators reveal a disturbing consensus. Quote, they were instructed to eliminate subversives by any means necessary, which remains a haunting reminder of the Cold War era American interventionism. Survivors' testimonies, collected decades later, speak of a reign of terror justified under the guise of anti-communism, while the CIA's role remains a dark chapter in the agency's long history of covert operations and human rights abuses. By 1975, public outcry over the CIA's covert atrocities reached a boiling point. Again, the Church Committee, led by Senator Frank Church, unveiled a Pandora's box of horrors, and the testimonies were harrowing. There was assassinations, domestic surveillance, and collaborations with organized crime. Again, the CIA tried to use the Sicilian mafia to eliminate Fidel Castro, and they routed payments through offshore accounts in sealed envelopes.
Oh, God.
It's so crazy, right? It's like they left their money in a suitcase under the bridge. They used offshore accounts.
Yeah, it's so like shitty mob movie coded. And it's insane that it's actual American history with American government agencies.
It's so
God,
shitty.
we're so embarrassing. And it
I
wasn't that
know.
long ago. It was in the 70s.
Our parents were alive.
Yes. Yes, girl.
Ugh, we're only like barely like I was I mean, I was born way before this happened. I don't remember any of it, but no, I'm just kidding.
She was close
Uh,
though.
Hashtag old joke. Um, the committee's report forced the implementation of the Executive Order 11905, banning political assassinations.
Oh, yeah, I bet that stopped them.
Yeah. Insiders know better. Former CIA Director William Colby famously quipped that the gloves are off, hinting that the agency's deadly missions would merely adapt, not cease.
Yeah, no shit.
And the dawn of the 21st century saw the CIA's transformation from shadowy operatives with silenced pistols to joystick wielding analysts controlling deadly drones from half a world away.
Yep.
The drone program, while hailed as precise, has left behind a trail of charred bodies and shattered families. Pakistani villagers recounted tales of buzzing drones overhead, a sound synonymous with death, as missiles obliterated wedding processions and schoolyards alike.
Mm-hmm.
The assassination of Anwar al-Awlaki, an American citizen in 2011, was killed by a CIA drone strike in Yemen, which ignited a legal firestorm. Initially, Anwar was seen as a moderate Muslim cleric. He was born in New Mexico and educated in the United States. He preached at mosques in San Diego and Virginia, and he even had a meeting at the Pentagon with officials after 9/11, which was part of outreach efforts to Muslim Americans. However, by the mid-2000s, his sermons took a little bit of a darker turn. They began to blend religious discourse with political grievances against U.S. foreign policy, particularly in the Middle East.
Totally reasonable. Totally
Absolutely.
reasonable
Yeah.
reaction.
Anwar became notorious for his ability to inspire young Muslims worldwide through online service or sermons. His rhetoric condemned U.S. military actions in Muslim majority countries, and he urged violent jihad as a form of resistance. The CIA and FBI linked him to several high profile terrorist plots, including the Fort Hood shooting and the failed underwear bomber attack of the Detroit bound plane in 2009 and the Times Square bombing attempt in 2010. Now, while evidence showed he influenced attackers through his online presence, whether he directly orchestrated these plots remains highly debated. His most damning association was with Al Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, also known as AQAP, where U.S. intelligence officials claimed he moved beyond being just a propagandist to actively participating in planning attacks. And this shift made him a high priority target for the CIA. But critics argue that Anwar's designation as a terrorist mastermind was partly driven by political expediency. Civil liberties advocates questioned the legal justification for his extrajudicial killing, noting that he was never charged and never tried in court. Remember, he's still an American citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And his death, they argue, set a troubling precedent for targeting American citizens without due process. You can argue if he was a bad person. I wouldn't want to touch boots with Al Qaeda. I think that makes you a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
But so to many U.S. authorities and many Americans, his promotion of violence against civilians and direct links to terrorist plots do make him a significant threat. But if you really want to be critical of U.S. foreign policy, which we love to do, he was nothing but a product of systemic injustices, which turned to violent rhetoric in response to Western interventionism. His life embodies the gray areas in the war on terror, where morality, legality, and security intersect in profoundly uncomfortable ways. We are radicalizing people
Exactly.
against us.
Yeah, we're forcing people to be radicalized. I think I don't know if I sent it to you, but it's this quote that says, "To call for peacefulness amidst a brutal occupation without calling for an end to the occupation is to call for the submission of the dispossessed."
Yeah.
And it's like we all sit like I always think about this in terms of the Palestinian struggle and Gaza, right? I agree that everything that happened on October 10th or October 7th is egregious and horrible and human atrocity, and it's terrible and miserable.
Hmm.
Did it like shock me out of bed and I sat there holding my head going, how could this have happened? No, I wasn't. Because when you mercilessly and ruthlessly bomb an entire population to
Hmm.
oblivion, burning children in hospital beds, putting a city to rubble just because of the people under the guise of like, oh, well, there was a terrorist there. Okay, so the entire city block has to go. When
Right?
you build a a people on that foundation, yeah, they're going to be radicalized. You're giving them no choice. To live is radical. So it's like for them to be born in violence and bloodshed and then to turn to a mindset of violence and bloodshed, it's not surprising. It's math. One plus one equals two.
Yeah. It's I know I've said this before, but like there were instances where they were arresting women wearing like hijab or like fully covered swimming suits in France. And if you're a little kid at the beach with your mother and you see her being brutalized by the police, that will radicalize you. That would radicalize me.
Yeah.
If that they used to fine women and throw them in jail if their like shorts were too short in the United States. Like,
Hmm.
look at how they treated women who gossiped, who AKA were breaking down the patriarchy by talking to their friends about problematic men.
Yep.
This is it's just so sad. Like I think that he went down a dark road. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Al
sure.
Qaeda is not excused. This guy started as a Muslim preacher in the United States, and the CIA had him pegged from day one.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I don't want to say, well, we're not going to get into the dark road of like when we scapegoat people, but you can't sit there and create a culture that fosters hatred and exclude an entire group of people and then wonder why they're against you.
Yeah. Wonder why
Um,
they're mad, wonder why they're upset, wonder why they're extremist.
yeah, like you have your boot on somebody's throat and they have the audacity to cough back.
Yeah, if
Um,
yeah, 1,000%.
And I'm thinking like also just about like the trans community and things like that. Like the more that we're putting people down and that we're seeing like how the government keeps people down, the more it's going to cause extremism.
Yeah. Yeah.
So something
Yeah.
to just think about.
And extremism is a two-way street. It has to have the other to exist. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't come out of nowhere. People don't wake up and be like, I fucking hate America. Well, I mean, some of them
Yeah.
do, but there's a reason why they feel that way. It's coming from somewhere.
It's like
And
pressure doesn't always make diamonds, babe.
yeah, yeah, 1,000%. So
So the debate continues, but the pattern is clear. The CIA's hand in extrajudicial killings from the jungles of Latin America to the deserts of the Middle East remains an unsettling constant in the landscape of this could have been such a good sentence. And we don't edit the podcast. I can't just say it again. I just
rock
have
it,
to
dude.
fucking remains an unsettling constant in the landscape of global power plays.
There you go.
The history of assassinations reveals a chilling pattern. When unchecked power operates in the shadows, justice becomes collateral damage. From overthrowing elected leaders to drone strikes on American citizens, each covert kill chips away at the very principles the United States claims to defend. What starts as national security quickly mutates into political manipulation, corporate greed, and unaccountable violence. Americans must remain vigilant because a government that evades the rule of law abroad will inevitably erode freedom at home. You
T.
must, yes, thank you. Snaps. Demand transparency and demand accountability.
That's it, girl. That's it, girl. That's
Another stroke.
and
Just fought off.
as Chelsea smells burnt toast, I also, when you were talking about the trans struggle, I think about this. If the powers that be, if the government is so quick and easy to try to make a person's existence illegal, right? Which is
Yeah.
insane because they still exist. If they are so quick to do that to them, what makes you think they won't do it to you? Re Removing the checks and balances and
Mm-hmm.
being like unjust and breaking the own rules you set for individuality. Jesus, now you pass the stroke on to me.
I'm sorry, it's contagious.
And like the pursuit of happiness and this individualist identity, and then to turn around and say, "Oh, but not for you." What makes you think like you're safe as well? Like it's such an insane concept to think that, oh, because it's happening to them, it won't happen to me. If they're willing to jump the line and prevent due process, like you're next. I mean, even look at Luigi Mangione. Like
Yeah.
they it's okay, a man was shot and killed. Check out any crime stat in any fucking major city.
Yeah.
A
And look
man
how
is
they're parading him.
Yeah, a man is shot and killed every day. People are killed
Yeah.
every day. And all of these people don't get a fucking Joker style perp walk.
No.
And they don't get the federal government coming down on them saying death penalty. No. No. Some of them don't even get caught.
And they also oh my God.
Hello?
They also it's at a YouTube notification, and I thought it was that lady commenting back, and I went to open it up, and it was an ingrown toenail removal.
Oh my God.
Oh, it got me quick. I thought we were gonna get an update of Patreon in real time. That was my phone flipping over. Yeah, the fact that they're trying to paint him as a criminal when everybody loves him, local folk hero, and then notice how like the coverage of him kind of stopped. They're trying to desensationalize him. My God, the stroke. We're playing volleyball, the stroke right now. Yeah, it's so crazy. And then if you think about, you try to talk about any of this stuff and you get labeled as a conspiracy theorist, which I will proudly wear that title, but also it's hard because I think that they are letting some crazy conspiracies get a foothold on the right, so that conspiracy theorists can be painted as nut jobs. You got a guy gunning down people over Pizzagate. So then if I'm like, the CIA doesn't care about your individualism as an American, and they're like, you guys are the same. It's like, fuck.
Yeah. It's very intentional. Yeah, it's, and you know who's going to love this episode? Is
Hassan.
Who
we also love.
Hassan, who we love. Lynn Thornton, 9298, who really loved when Chelsea covered psychological warfare and psyops.
Dude, Lynn, that was the best. I'm going to put that on a shirt. I actually really appreciate the fact that you clicked on it means that you touched my heart.
Yeah, you touched us consensually. So Lynn Thornton, 9298, this one's for you.
This one's for you, Lynn.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, dude. Hey. I loved this I loved this episode. I don't love the CIA, but I love talking about this because, oh boy, does it feel like history repeats itself when no one pays attention. So
yeah.
Super that we're on a watch list, dude. I fucking know it.
No, I think we are.
Well, I had like a week of being censored so much that even my DMs were being censored. So like I know, but you're coming down with me now, girl, too. You thought you were safe on Antarctica, and now you're talking about the CIA.
I know, right? Here's the thing, and I think they are connected, but I think I got shadow banned in Pokemon Go because all the Pokemon are running away when I try to catch them, and I think it's the CIA fucking with me. They're hitting me where it hurts me the most.
Crazy. That's crazy.
I can't catch a Pidgey, and I'm like level 50. Get the fuck out of here. That's crazy.
Get off Pokemon Go, first of all.
No.
I can only imagine the amount of hours you put into geo-mapping for the CIA by playing Pokemon Go.
You want to know what? I'm putting the exact same amount of hours into letting China know our secrets by scrolling TikTok mindlessly. I'm clicking on the ads just to fuck with people.
They can have them. You know what?
Yeah.
I bought something off TikTok Shop.
I left Red Note installed, and I open it now and then just for the love of the game.
Xi Jinping is going to hand deliver a pair of platform Crocs to my front door, and I'm going to say, come in. I'm going to say, come in, brother. So
I bought you that Labubu. It is still off in China somewhere with the most weirdly sinister looking tracking I've ever seen, but it'll get here someday.
Not Labubu's at the Pacific Ocean, girl. Oh my God.
You know, I saw some Labubu at the Ogden Mall, Newgate, locals would call it. And they were like $20. They were like stuffed, but I don't think they were real, man.
Of course not. Of course they were not.
So
I'll guarantee
I thought about getting you one, but I was like, nah.
Don't.
The
We're
one
committed.
I ordered will get here eventually.
We're committed to that one that's going on a flat Stanley trip of the world.
Yeah. It's one guy with a life jacket swimming it over here. So
It's gonna be another Xi Jinping hand delivery.
yeah.
Speaking of hand deliveries, you can go hand deliver yourself something cool and awesome by clicking the link tree in all of our bios. I am at Noelle Fain. That is at Sith Lord. We are at Go to Hell Podcast. And in that link tree, you can find a link to our Patreon. $1 gets you in. Baby, we're getting political. We're getting political. We're talking insider baseball. We're talking paywall. We're talking we say things behind a paywall. You can also find a link to our merch. 100% of proceeds are donated. There's new merch up. It's super fucking cool merch. It's got some of Kelly's new art. Kelly Halloran or at Wildwood Owl on Etsy. She makes cool shit for us. She makes cool shit in general. Go check that out. We also have a link to our YouTube where you can be like Lynn Thornton 2998 and talk shit in our comments because that's the way we like it. In that link tree, you will also find a link to AFSC Palestine, which are ways both financially and non-financially to help the people of Palestine. We also have a link to our Discord server, which is where we're at and which is where we welcome, remember, educated, friendly, equitable debate and back and forth, and also just fun sharing of your dogs and cool things that you're doing and watching. So, and I don't know why you'd need it, but we also have links to listen to us, which is anywhere podcasts are heard.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and give a hail to Fidel Castro's new ownership of Many Men by 50 Cent. And I'm also going to give a secondary hail to us being on a government watch list.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna give a hail to the guerrilla group that ended up killing that shitty CIA guy. What was his name? Fuck. I should have been ready. Dan. But I'm only going to say hail them for that specifically because I haven't researched them for any other atrocities that they may have committed.
Yeah.
So I like the other side of the coin of assassinations when it benefits me personally.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we should always have a caveat like that whenever we say, honestly, that the rule of thumb is like, if you're going to put a man on a pedestal, you got to put a caveat behind it because they might disappoint you or they might participate in terrorist guerrilla warfare. So, that's that.
Yeah.
But
so that's with an asterisk.
Mm-hmm.
Don't quote me.
I knew it was there. I knew it was there. So
perfect.
You know what? Let's get the fuck out of here.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Hell's Gate is a supernatural roller derby comic book series dripping of blood, demons, and glitter. Saya is a fresh meat skater with a dangerous crush on her favorite derby player. Desperate to be accepted, she attempts to cast a magic spell in hopes of winning her idol's admiration, but instead unleashes a demonic possession that seeks to destroy her and her team at that night's Halloween game. The first issue is out now. Visit hellsgate.com to get your limited edition copy today.